Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to look at how to put together a 32-inch rigid heddle loom from Ashford in New Zealand. This loom's really cool. You can make all kinds of stuff with it, from table runners to scarves, and in future videos I'm going to show you how to do some of that stuff. Today we're going to look at how you build the loom, and in particular I'm going to show a technique I used using Montypresso wax from Monty's guitars in the UK, a wax that was designed for aging guitar necks to give the loom an antiqued effect. So join me, build along, and enjoy. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is see what's in the box. So let's cut this open. If you're using big scissors like this, you probably want to be a bit careful about the tape. So don't cut into the box when you open it. What I usually do when I'm doing this sort of stuff is just sort of lever it up a bit and then get a sharp object under. But do be careful about, ripping stuff up. Okay, I'll get there. Get there. Doodle-doo, doodle-doo. Okay. Inside the corrugated packaging, there is a nice box. So let's get rid of the corrugated packaging. We can put that in the recycling later. And we'll get rid of the plastic, which unfortunately is going to go in the trash. And let's see what's in our magical box. Again, more tape on here, so I want to just cut the tape. Again, don't cut into the box because the loom is made of wood. Cut the box. Alright, so what do we have in here? Looks like a couple of shuttles, a giant one and a smaller one. The teeth, sides of the loom, magic plastic bits, fixings. What's in here? Okay, other pieces. This is going to be a clamp, I think. Right there. And recycle the paper. Cardboard is for when you're putting your fibers onto these things. And we're all new to this, so the terminology is new. What's interesting is these are lengthwise struts, and I think they might be drilled, they might not be drilled. Yeah, we'll figure that out. So everything is drilled, it's nicely finished art, and of course the famous book of words, super important. A little bit of sandpaper too. That's going to be handy for any rough edges that we see. Okay, so let's put the box in the recycling and we can figure out how to put this together. So let's take a look at what's in the book of words. Comes in a nice plastic bag. We have Learn to weave on the rigid heddle loom. So this is explaining essentially how to set up the loom. And I believe the first project is a scarf. And this looks a little bit like some of the stuff that is on the web pages. There is also in here a instruction manual for putting everything together. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to be putting it all together in a minute, which is good. Now you'll notice that the parts are not finished, so I want to talk about that in a minute. Looks like a catalogue. Welcome to the Ashford world of spinning and textile crafts. So there's lots of good stuff in here. There's a couple of extra things that we may want to get at some point. We might want to get a boat loom because that may help make weaving a little easier. and we're probably going to have to get more of these. So that's cool. And there is a magazine, the wheel. This is pretty cool. This is Ashford's sort of in-house magazine, but it's got projects in it and all sorts of other interesting things. So we'll come to that. And sandpaper for getting rid of rough edges. Okay, so for finishing it, you'll see that the wood comes unfinished. It's really well sanded though, so I don't think there's much finishing work that I need to do on this, but there is sandpaper supplied as needed for taking off rough edges. And it's recommended that the wood be waxed. And you know, you can get plenty of wood waxing products from your local hardware store. I actually chose to use some stuff that I had left over from finishing guitar necks. This is Montypresso guitar wax, and it is, as you can see, a brown color. And so what I'm hoping is that this will give a nice aged effect on it. So what you need are a couple of old rags, and I bought these t-shirt things at the hardware store, and as you can see, they've been used before. So I'm just gonna start putting some of this wax. It's a little cold today, as you can see, so it's not necessarily coming off. So I'm gonna start basically treating the wood with this wax. The goal of waxing it is really just to protect the wood. The wax will get absorbed. We'll leave it for a couple of hours and then pull it out. It's probably not going to leave much in the way of residue on your projects, so you know, don't worry too much about that. By the time this is all soaked in, it's going to be as good as, you know, a polyurethane finish. But I just prefer waxing wood rather than sealing it. And you'll see, because this is a colored wax, what happens is it kind of settles in the grain a little bit. And as you look at it, so this is sort of the unfinished wood versus the finished wood. It kind of settles into the grain and gives a really nice effect. It's almost like aging it. So I'm a big fan of this. So we're going to go ahead and wax all of these and then leave it to settle in, and then we'll start putting the loom together. But I like how this is coming up. So we'll be back in a bit. Basically, the process with the wax is you grab some on a rag and you rub it in, and you grab some more on the rag and you rub it in. It's a pretty time-consuming process. It probably took us, you know, best part of 15 or 20 minutes to get the finish, but it looks really good. The wax itself comes from Monty's guitars in the UK, and it leaves this really neat vintage finish. So once you're done, your loom actually looks as though it's been around for a while, and there's some comparisons here between untreated wood and the finished wood. So we let the wax set in for a few hours. What that does is, as you can see, it helps bring out the absolute beauty of the grain in this wood. And it does give it a little bit of an antique feel. So what I do is basically grab a cloth and just rub off any residue. You can feel pretty much, you know, it'll feel sticky if you still have wax on there. So you let it soak in for a few hours and then just sort of wipe it off. And what you're left with is this beautiful highlighting of the grain. It makes the wood, and believe me, you know, the Ashford Loom is beautiful, you know, as it comes. And you could just use a clear wax on it, but this dark wax kind of gets in the grain, and it really brings it out. It makes it look rather special. So I'm pretty pleased with the way that this has come out, and we're ready now I think, to start assembling the loom. So that's all that. One thing to be aware of is that you really don't want to get wax on the nylon here. So, you know, as you're waxing these, just try and be really careful not to get wax in the teeth. You can see, you know, here, I did get some in there, so there's a little bit of cleaning up to do on here. It's not the end of the world if you do. You get a little bit of wax on the wool. It'll probably come out when you wash it, but this wax has a stain on it, and you probably don't want the stain on anything that you're weaving. Okay, so let's get it all set up and ready to put together. Cool, so the instructions have a parts list. And what's going to be helpful in putting this together is to lay out all of the parts according to this illustration, and then you know where everything is. So you can sort of see that we've got the left side, the right side, we need the back rail, and the front rail. And the back rail and the front rail are different. The front rail has these 4 holes drilled in it. The back rail doesn't. Okay, so that's really how you tell them apart. And then we're going to be using a couple of the plastic parts. We have 2 ratchets, which are going to go here and here, and the 2 tensioning handles, which we'll have here and here. Okay, and that's got us set up for this. So I'm going to start putting it together according to the instructions. Okay, so we've got 2 poles, and we want those to be going over this little pin here. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that. And then when this is fastened, you'll be able to kind of turn it on and off, and that's going to be fastened with a screw. Okay, nice. Same with this one. With all of this, I'm using the electric screwdriver in conjunction with a regular hand screwdriver. The electric screwdriver is on its lowest torque because I don't want to damage any of the parts. The wood's quite soft, the plastic could be ripped up. So, you know, really just using it to do up the screws, and then I use the hand screwdriver to finish it. Okay. And next step. Okay, we're going to use these screws to get the back rail and the front rail in. Remember, the front rail has these holes drilled in it, okay, and they're going to face upwards. So we'll just get this lined up. Pilot holes. We can use this just to make sure that we're putting it in straight. Okay. Right now you're going to see that I don't have the screwdriver well seated in the screw and it's slipping. which is really not ideal. So try and make sure you seat the screwdriver if you're using an electric one properly. Alright, putting a little bit of wax on the screws is going to help them actually go in, so that's a good tip. Okay, on these guys there's a notch. This is going to go on that side, okay, on the right side. That's it. And then the rest is just really following the instructions. So you can see here we sped everything up. This is really just putting the whole thing together, start to finish. It's really just a question of being patient. It doesn't take very long to build the loom, but you really want to follow the instructions properly. You'll see actually that on one of the bottom pieces it went in the wrong way round, and I ended up having to take it apart and flip it around. It's not a problem, just go carefully. Of course, building the loom is only the beginning. Hopefully soon you can use it to start making things. Scarves are pretty easy to make. That's really what I started with. It also helps if you've got somebody there to help you. This is Iris, and she's a really big help when I'm weaving. She has a tendency to get involved in everything, but that's totally cool. Then you can make a lot of different patterns. So this is setting up a simple dogtooth pattern, and it's basically alternates. And you can obviously build more complex patterns too as you get more into this. The really cool thing about having a loom is you get to choose what colors you weave, what kind of materials you use, and the patterns that you put together. You can get help from your friendly local cats and some really cool stuff. So please like and subscribe and comment below if you like this content, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.